Have you ever had a parent-teacher conference where the teacher describes a child you've literally never met? They tell you that your child was a shining beacon of focus, a Zen master of respect, and perfectly compliant for 7 straight hours, only for that same child to walk through your front door and undergo a transformation so radical it would make Dr. Jekyll blush? It's as if they crossed an invisible threshold at the entryway, and the minute their backpack hit the floor, their entire nervous system hit a high-voltage wall and shattered into a million pieces. From a psychological perspective, this isn't bad behavior. It's a total biological collapse caused by a day of relentless executive functioning effort. All day long, your child has been white-knuckling their inhibition control, draining every last drop of their cognitive reserve to stay seated, follow rules, and mask their ADHD symptoms. They have been holding their lid down with every ounce of mental strength they possess. When they finally reach the safety zone of home, the prefrontal cortex, the brain's weary CEO, simply resigns for the day. The resulting meltdown is an amygdala hijack of epic proportions. Because they finally feel safe enough to let go, their brain releases a day's worth of accumulated cortisol and pent-up frustration in one giant explosive flipped lid moment. To the outside world, they were a model student. To you, they are a raw, exposed nerve ending. This is the ultimate compliment to your parenting. They save their most profound dysregulation for you because you are the only person they trust to hold them while their world falls apart. Parents often feel confused by this contrast. They wonder why their child can keep it together in a structured setting like school, but unravels at home. Today, I'm going to explain what's happening neurologically and psychologically in that after-school window, why it's so common in ADHD brains, and exactly what you can do to prevent the meltdown spiral by using a simple after-school reset system that supports blood sugar, hydration, movement, and nervous system decompression without accidentally triggering a screen-based dopamine crash. Welcome back to the Path to Peace Therapy podcast. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie Buckley. I'm a parenting strategist and family systems coach who specializes in ADHD, executive functioning challenges, emotional regulation, and the patterns that keep families stuck in the same arguments on repeat. I created this podcast because I didn't want parents to feel alone, and I wanted to translate what's happening under the behavior neurologically, psychologically, and relationally so you can stop taking the behavior personally and start responding strategically. I'm also a mom to a thriving 23-year-old neurodivergent son with ADHD, and I've been married for over 3 decades, so I bring both professional insight and lived experience into these conversations because real families need real tools. In today's episode, an important concept to understand here is masking. Masking is a psychological term that describes when someone suppresses their natural impulses or behaviors in order to meet expectations in an environment that demands intense self-control. For a child with ADHD, masking all day at school is the equivalent of running a mental marathon while everyone else is going for a light stroll. They are working overtime to sit still, raise their hand, wait their turn, track directions, and ignore distractions, all of which rely on executive functioning. This management system is driven by the prefrontal cortex, and in ADHD brains, this hardware is often slower to develop and requires significantly more fuel to do what looks easy for neurotypical peers. This constant high-stakes effort leads to cognitive fatigue, where the brain's mental battery is drained to zero before they even step off the bus. When your child walks through the front door, they aren't just coming home. They are entering a safety zone where the demand to mask finally disappears. Because their executive functioning reserves are depleted, the CEO of their brain effectively goes on strike. This results in a total nervous system collapse, where the amygdala, the emotional center, takes over because the exhausted prefrontal cortex can no longer keep the lid closed. To a parent, this looks like a sudden explosion of defiance or attitude, but it is actually a biological unraveling. They aren't doing it to punish you. They are doing it because you are the only person they trust enough to let their guard down. Home is the only place where their nervous system feels secure enough to fall apart after a day of forced perfection. Imagine a child who was praised all day for being a leader in class. The moment they walk into the kitchen and see the wrong snack, they collapse into tears or start an argument about the color of a bowl. This isn't about the bowl. It's about decision fatigue. Their brain has made thousands of tiny choices all day to stay regulated, and that one final choice of what to eat is the straw that breaks the camel's back. The shift. Instead of viewing this as spoiled behavior, recognize it as dysregulation. You might say, I can see your brain worked so hard today that it's all out of energy. I'll pick the snack for you today so your brain can rest. This reduces the cognitive load and provides immediate support. You ask your child to take their shoes off 3 times, and they just stand there, staring at their laces. This often looks like blatant defiance, but in the context of masking, it's a freeze response. Their working memory is so overloaded from the school day that they can no longer process verbal instructions. Their brain is buffering. The shift. Use visual scaffolding or a gentle physical touch. Instead of raising your voice, which only triggers the amygdala, you might simply place a hand on their shoulder to ground them and point to the shoe rack. This bypasses the need for complex language processing and helps them complete the task without a fight. A child who was patient with a difficult lab partner all day suddenly snaps at their younger sibling for simply breathing too loud. This is a failure of inhibition control. Their social filter has been used up. They have no buffer left to handle the sensory input of a sibling's presence. The shift. Practice. Proactive scaffolding by creating a quiet transition zone. Allow your child 20 minutes of solitary time or a sensory reset before expecting them to interact with the family. By respecting their need for autonomic recovery, you prevent the explosion before it starts. Now here's the part that changes everything for families. The after-school meltdown window is not primarily a behavior problem. It's often a transition plus depletion problem. Many kids are coming home with low blood sugar, low hydration, pent-up physical energy from sitting still, and a nervous system that is overworked from sustained self-regulation. So the solution is not yelling, lecturing, or jumping straight into homework. The solution is building an after-school reset system that meets the body's needs first, so the brain can function again. In psychology, we refer to a highly structured environment like a classroom as a scaffolded environment. For a child with ADHD, a structured setting acts as an external prefrontal cortex. The school day is built on predictability, clear schedules, visual timers, immediate social cues, and a constant stream of external anchors that tell the child exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to behave. This structure provides the executive functioning support that the ADHD brain lacks internally. Because the environment is providing the organization, the child's brain doesn't have to work as hard to sequence tasks or manage time. They are borrowing the structure of the school to stay regulated and focused. However, for an ADHD child, operating within this structure requires a massive amount of inhibition control and cognitive effort. Every time they stop themselves from fidgeting, force their attention back to a worksheet, or suppress a frustrated impulse, they are draining their cognitive reserve. This process is often called masking. While the teacher sees a child who is focused and respectful, the child is actually performing a high-wire act of mental endurance. By the time they reach the front door of their home, their mental battery is completely depleted. They have used up every ounce of their self-regulation capacity just to survive the school day. The reason the meltdown happens at home and not at school is actually a testament to the attachment security they feel with you. Home is their safe base. When a child enters a space where they feel unconditionally loved and accepted, their nervous system finally feels safe enough to stop masking. The prefrontal cortex, the logical CEO, essentially clocks out for the day, and the amygdala, the emotional center, takes the wheel. This is why a simple request at 4 p.m., like "please hang up your coat," can trigger an amygdala hijack. The brain is in a state of cognitive fatigue, and that one small demand is the straw that breaks the camel's back, causing the child to flip their lid. This is why structure at home is so vital, yet so difficult to implement. In an ADHD home, structure shouldn't be about rigid rules. It's about reducing the cognitive load on the child. By creating external scaffolds at home like visual checklists for the evening routine, designated landing zones for backpacks, and predictable transition times, you are offloading the work from the child's tired brain. When the home environment is predictable, the child doesn't have to use their limited executive functioning reserves to figure out what comes next. This preserves their energy for emotional regulation and connection, moving the family from a state of constant dysregulation to one of collaborative, proactive peace. To a neurotypical brain, a themed dinner night is just a fun way to plan a grocery list. But for an ADHD brain, a routine like Taco Tuesday or Meatloaf Monday is a vital form of external scaffolding. Because the ADHD brain often struggles with executive functioning skills, specifically working memory and cognitive flexibility, the transition from the high-pressure school day to the evening routine can feel like navigating a maze without a map. When a child knows exactly what is for dinner before they even step foot in the house, you have effectively removed a significant cognitive load. They no longer have to process the unknown or manage the anxiety of an unexpected sensory experience, like a new smell or texture. This predictability lowers the arousal of the amygdala, keeping the brain's smoke detector quiet and allowing the prefrontal cortex to remain online for other tasks like homework or social connection. For your Wednesday slot, a fantastic option to round out the start of the week is Breakfast for Dinner Wednesday or Waffle Wednesday. There is a profound psychological benefit to this specific theme. Breakfast foods are often high in protein, eggs, Greek yogurt, or protein waffles or pancakes, which provides the essential amino acids needed to produce dopamine and norepinephrine, the very neurotransmitters that the ADHD brain is chronically seeking. Furthermore, breakfast for dinner serves as a dopamine hit because it breaks the traditional rules of the day in a fun, low-stress way. This playful shift can act as a form of co-regulation, injecting a sense of lightness into the midweek hump when cognitive fatigue is usually at its peak. By leaning into a meal that is quick to prepare and sensory-friendly, you reduce the parent's decision fatigue while providing the child with a comforting, predictable anchor. When you implement these themed nights, you are practicing proactive scaffolding, which is the act of setting up the environment to prevent a flipped lid before it even happens. Instead of a power struggle over what's for dinner, the child relies on the external structure you've built. This predictability acts as a biological anchor, allowing the child's nervous system to downshift from the high alert state of school into the rest and digest state of the parasympathetic nervous system. Over time, these routines build self-efficacy in the child because they feel in control of their environment, leading to a much smoother transition into the evening and ultimately a more peaceful household. Before we move into homework or evening routines, one of the most powerful systems parents can implement is what I call the after-school reset. When ADHD kids come home from school, their nervous system is often depleted from hours of masking, impulse control, and executive functioning. Instead of jumping straight into demands, give the brain time to reset. Start with protein and hydration. That might look like an organ protein drink, a Chomp's beef stick, string cheese, or apple slices with peanut butter, along with a full glass of water. Next comes movement, because ADHD brains regulate through motion. Kids can jump on a small trampoline, do jumping jacks, jump rope, run short sprints up and down the street, go for a walk with you around the block, or play tag to get the wiggles out. After that, allow quiet decompression that does not involve screens, because screens create a synthetic burst of dopamine that crashes once the device is turned off. Instead, kids can listen to music, read, draw, or work on a hands-on STEM project like the kits from KiwiCo. When families consistently follow the sequence of snack, water, movement, and quiet decompression, the child's brain and nervous system can reset before transitioning into homework or evening routines. So what does this look like? The first step in the after-school reset is nutrition, specifically stabilizing blood sugar with protein. The brain runs on fuel, and when kids haven't eaten for hours, blood sugar drops and emotional regulation gets harder. For ADHD brains, this matters even more because attention and emotional control already require extra effort. A simple protein-forward snack can dramatically reduce irritability and dysregulation. Practical options that work in real life include Orgain protein drinks, Chomp's beef sticks, string cheese, and apples with peanut butter. These are not fancy wellness trends. These are functional tools. Protein and healthy fats help slow glucose absorption and keep energy steady rather than creating a sugar spike and crash. If parents want convenience, Orgain makes ready-to-drink shakes, and Thrive Market carries Orgain protein shakes. Chomp's beef sticks are also available on Thrive Market, and they're a grab-and-go option many families love because they're easy to store and easy to pack. Even if you don't use those specific brands, the principle remains. After school, your child needs fuel that supports regulation. The second step is hydration. Even mild dehydration can affect mood, focus, and energy. A child can leave school dehydrated simply because they were busy, didn't want to ask to use the bathroom, or didn't drink enough during the day. A simple habit like first thing when you walk in, grab water, is not a small thing. Hydration supports brain function, supports physical recovery, and helps the body come out of that stressed, depleted after-school state. The third step is physical movement, because many ADHD kids have been sitting still all day while their body is quietly screaming for motion. Movement is one of the fastest ways to regulate the nervous system because it helps discharge stress energy and it supports dopamine regulation in a natural way. This does not have to be a major workout. It can be a short, playful, structured movement burst that helps the child get the wiggles out. That could look like jumping on a small trampoline or rebounder, doing jumping jacks, jumping rope, going for a walk with you around the block, doing short sprints up and down the street or across a grassy area, or playing tag together. Parents, your involvement matters here because co-regulation is real. Co-regulation is a developmental process where a child's nervous system stabilizes through connection with a regulated adult. When you move with them, you're not just burning energy, you're building attachment security and emotional alignment. And yes, small rebounder trampolines often land around that roughly $60 range depending on the brand and sales, which is why so many families choose them as a simple indoor movement tool. The fourth step is quiet decompression, and this is the one where I want to be extremely clear. Quiet time does not mean screen time. When we say, give them 30 minutes, we do not mean handing them a phone, turning on a video game, or putting them in front of YouTube. Screens create what I call a synthetic, false burst of dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter involved in motivation, reward, and attention. And ADHD brains often have difficulty regulating dopamine pathways. When a child goes on a screen, especially scrolling or gaming, the brain gets an intense dopamine surge. It feels calming in the moment, but it's not true regulation. It's stimulation. And when the screen turns off, dopamine can drop quickly, which is why you see the crankiness, the irritability, the no response, the bargaining, or the sudden explosion. That post-screen crash can trigger dysregulation and power struggles right when you want the child to transition to homework, chores, or family time. So, what should decompression time look like instead? It should be calming and hands-on without overstimulation. Listening to music is a great example. A STEM project is another excellent option because it engages the brain in a focused, rewarding way without the high-speed dopamine spikes of screens. KiwiCo is a subscription-based company that sends age-appropriate STEM projects to your home. And it's a fantastic after-school option because it gives kids something tangible to build and problem solve with. These kits support attention, frustration tolerance, and follow-through, while also giving the child that "I did something" feeling that builds self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the belief that I can do hard things, and it is one of the most protective psychological factors for kids with ADHD because confidence is built through mastery experiences, not lectures. When families use this sequence consistently, protein, hydration, movement, then non-screen decompression, you're essentially building a bridge for the nervous system. You're helping your child transition out of the high-demand school environment and into the home environment without their body going into survival mode. Over time, this reduces after-school meltdowns, decreases homework resistance, and changes the emotional tone of your evenings because you're meeting needs before making demands. This is not permissive parenting. This is strategic nervous system support. Just remember, this simple sequence of snack, water, movement, and quiet decompression helps the brain regulate before you ask your child to do more. It will transform your family and your relationship with your children. The information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy, medical advice, or mental health treatment. If you or your child need individualized support, please consult with a licensed professional. If this episode helped you, share it with another parent who is living in the after-school meltdown window and wondering what they are doing wrong. You can learn more about my work at thepathtopeacetherapy.com, and you can email me at stephanieb@thepathtopeacetherapy.com, or you can email me at stephanieb@thepathtopeacetherapy.com. Thank you for listening to the Path to Peace Therapy podcast, and remember, when we understand the system, we can change the system, and that's how we move closer to a path to peace.